All right, guys, welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well. Day 15 on the government shutdown, government furlough, day 15, and day 5 post the flash crash of Friday, October 10th. If you guys have been following along on Substack, you guys know that was a massive, massive buying opportunity for the Strategic 5. And while there's a lot of other cryptos out there, I get inundated with a lot, online and messages and things. During this time, as I said 2 years ago, in 2020, going into the election, that election and what was going to happen with that administration in crypto, being here in the DC area, knowing a lot of people who work at Treasury, understanding of the political dynamics in the government, what was going to be and whether it was going to be good or bad for crypto. A lot of people debated all that. We got ahead of the curve on the XRP situations there because that administration was very negative on XRP. Now you've got administration now coming into office now last year, and we set it up beginning in 2025 where the administration is surrounding itself with people that are very, very pro-crypto. We know that. However, that also comes with a little bit of fleas. And what you found that out on Friday was you had people who were kind of in the know on Friday that was coming. Okay. And how we know that is brand new blocks, brand new accounts were set up to the tune where some of them made 60, 80, 90 million dollars in that flash crash, meaning someone knew that tariff release was coming. Okay. It's got to remember, though, the shutdown is happening. So there's a lot less people in DC. So there's a lot less people that are kind of connected. A lot of people that I know are at home. Okay. They're not at the office. They're not connected to everything as to what's going on with terms of policy. Right. When you couple in the fact that you've got the Hamas hostage release happening, you've got a lot of geopolitics, involved. And that's why I have said once Trump got elected, okay, and I've been saying this repeatedly on Substack and repeatedly in the community, is you got to only look at the Strategic 5. The other ones right now are just, they're all volatile, right? And any trade that you're going on in crypto, especially when you're dealing with leverage, is going to be very, very volatile. But we saw this over the weekend. We had people in the community that netted $30,000, $40,000 in trades over the weekend. Okay, this is what happens. I'm using 10x leverage, which is a low leverage. Now, when you heard about the 19 billion, I want to put this out there because there was a lot of questions. When you talk about the 19 billion in liquidations, you have to remember that when we're talking about leverage liquidations and when the media, FUD Bloomberg and all them that are pretty much anti the administration and anything that's going to go on, they're going to hype up. That anything that reflects poorly on Trump, they're going to hype up, okay? So market crashes, Trump's fault. Trump's negative tariff deal with China causes market crash. That's what you're going to get on FUD Bloomberg. That's why I refer to them as the evil empire, okay? Because it's where you get your news from in terms of crypto, but also the broader business markets is critical because a lot of them now, like Bloomberg, are business through the lens of politics. They're not just business like in the 80s and the 90s when crashes were covered. It was all about fundamentals and technicals and economic and data and numbers and things like that. Now it's all about geopolitics because it's Trump. Okay. And so you've got to understand that everything that he says they are going to double down on, especially if it's negative, which will add even greater FUD to the market. Okay. But that $19 billion that we're talking about wasn't like liquid 19 billion. It wasn't like people lost $19 billion, okay, in cash, like gone, okay? Most of that was leverage in the market by institutions, majority of institutions betting on, Bitcoin to go higher. And they could have been a significant leverage. Most were probably at 25 or less, which means for example, if you had $100 in a 25x trade, it's $100 25 times in terms of the value of the trade. So when those things get liquidated, that's really what's being reported is the 19 billion. We don't really know exactly how much actual liquid cash was in that 19 billion. Okay, so it's a little bit of a misnomer in how that gets categorized. So I just want to put that. But that 19 billion was 9 times the record loss. Okay, but we have to remember where we've been. Bitcoin trading right now at, I believe it's 110,200. Sorry, 110,423. So we're getting a little bit of move off that $110,000 level. If you're looking at that chart here on the live stream, you're going to see that 110 level was kind of pretty close, okay, to wanting to have some kind of support. You can see this even after the flash crash, which you can see is that long flash line on Friday, dropping that RSI down to 20, which we all know, again, if you're adding to your bag, that's when you want to add to your bag. When these numbers are not below, 25 or 30, I prefer 20. You can trade, right? Your leverage trades, but it doesn't mean you need to take your earnings from your leverage trade and buy Bitcoin or Ethereum long or any of the strategic 5, right? You want to buy your strategic 5 on a day like that, okay? Where if you look at this chart right here, this is the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, okay, on the 5-bit exchange, which is a leverage trading exchange. Highly recommend. I'll post here in a little bit a link to where you can go to it. Totally revamped platform. It's very similar to the Bit7 platform we used years ago in the community. Few of the same people. They've upgraded it. There's a lot more assets available now to trade other than the 4 that you used to be able to trade, which is very limited. XRP is in there now, Cardano, Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, okay? These are the assets that you want to be trading, okay? Your strategic 5, okay? That's the future of crypto, okay? When you look at governments around the world, the future is going to be the strategic 5, okay? The rest of the stuff, the rest of the altcoins are great. They're candy, okay? They're phenomenal, like for other uses. There's but you've kind of seen how that landscape has kind of gotten pretty crazy with the number of offerings and the valuations of these coins and everything. It's just, to me, if you're new and you sincerely want to make crypto part of your, investing, you want to focus on the strategic 5. I know a lot of people will push back on that because there are plenty of projects, altcoin projects outside of the strategic 5 that are really good. And I cover those in the portfolio. But you really want to concentrate on dialing in your trading for your strategic 5. That's where the market's going to get moved. That's where the institutions are going to be putting their money. Those are the ones that are going to move. Now, what we figured out here is, again, it's an all beat all get all. Okay, like when the market crashes, everything crashes in crypto. So it doesn't really matter what you're in. Okay, the flash crash had nothing to do with liquidations maybe in your altcoin. But look what happened to Avalanche. Avalanche got taken out, okay? And, you're like, well, what does Avalanche have to do with geopolitics? Absolutely nothing. But it gets caught up in the tariff every bit as much as Ethereum and Bitcoin and the strategic 5 do, okay? And so, again, when the geopolitics becomes the norm, remember, you got to think the S&P took a 2.7 hit on Friday. A 2.7 hit in crypto is nothing, right? If the broader market, if the S&P 500, okay, you have to remember, the S&P 500, 40% of the value of the S&P 500 is in 7 stocks. Think about that. The Mag 7, 40% of the entire U.S. economy in terms of the S&P 500 is invested heavily in the Mag 7. So just seven stocks are controlling 40% of the S&P 500 valuation. Think about that. So what happens when there's an AI bubble, right? What's going to happen when there's an AI bubble? It's not here yet, but what happens when there is one? We had an internet boom, and we had a bubble, okay? So we got to think these things through, like, okay, we've got to pay attention to the macro, technicals, of course. But what you're learning and what I've been saying for 5 years is technical analysis in crypto long term often is irrelevant. Okay. The metrics are important. Inflows and outflows, absolutely important. Now with the arrival of ETFs, extremely important. Money moving into the ETFs means they've got to be buying crypto, the institution, the bank behind it, behind the ETF. They've got to have the crypto in their ETF, right? So the more money that comes in, the more money they've got to put into the ETF, right? And the reverse. If you and I are taking money out of our Bitcoin retirement or taking money out of our Bitcoin, what happens? Obviously, you see what happens. Everybody ran for the doors and looked for the exits on Friday once Trump announced 100% on top of the original tariff, 100% more in tariffs. Okay. And so you want to think about that in terms of how you're going to manage your trades. Okay. So you want to be a short-term trader. Okay. You want to be a long-term investor, long-term hodler of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, and XRP. Okay. But you want to be an active short-term trader. So you're not restricted by this technical analysis that people have always tried to apply to crypto from stocks. Okay. It doesn't work. It works short-term. If you're trading today and you want to look at the chart here, you can find support and resistance levels. And but what good did the technical analysis do on Thursday? On Thursday, the chart looked a certain way in Bitcoin. Everybody was bullish. It was like, okay, we're going to be heading higher towards the end of the year. Okay, remember, people have $150,000 price targets for Bitcoin by the end of the year. My target was 135. You guys will remember at the beginning of the year, I said 135,000. Okay, and now we're trading at 110, 400. All moving 110, 600, 700. We're moving up higher. So we're going to hit 111,000 here in a second. Okay. So we're coming back off that 110,000. Now, what you heard with the FUD at Bloomberg was, major crash in crypto. No, the major crash was the last time we broke 100,000 and we fell all the way back down to 70,000. You guys remember that? Okay. That was a lot more painful than what just happened. Okay. We were recovering pretty quickly. Bitcoin is stabilizing. You can look at the chart here on the 4-hour and you can see what's happened the last 4 days is we're now into a range again. Why are we in this range right now? Well, we've got FOMC meetings on October 28th and 29th coming up. We don't have the data, okay? We don't really have the preliminary data that usually leaks out a little bit, okay, in Washington because of the furlough. So this FOMC meeting, most people are going to be coming in blind, okay, because they're going to be scrambling to get a lot of the information that hired government employees usually put together for the Fed. Well, those people are at home. They're furloughed, okay? They're not at work. So nobody's working on that, okay? So that's going to be incredibly, interesting to see how that plays out. But remember, guys, 10 days ago, roughly 10 days ago, Bitcoin hit an all-time high. Think about that. You wouldn't think about that today in today's mindset. Everybody's living in the moment of today and negativity and all that stuff. This is when you want to be looking, okay? When you see on this chart, all right, these dips in the RSI, which is at the bottom here. When you see these, look at what happens after we dip down below right around 20 every single time. Bitcoin comes back. Now, sometimes it comes back faster and further and higher, but it always comes back, right? So when you see that RSI on your 4-hour chart fall below 25, that's a buying opportunity in your Coinbase account or in your wallet or wherever you buy your long crypto. That's an opportunity to put money in there and buy Bitcoin, buy Ethereum, okay? Buy your strategic 5. That's your opportunity, okay? And using your leverage trades, that's the way to do that, is to let the exchange buy your long crypto. Okay. People ask me all the time, what does that mean? It means if I make a leverage trade, if I put $500 or $100 or whatever into a trade right now at Bitcoin at 111,000, okay, 111,000 right now, Bitcoin's trading at 111,000. So let's do 111,000, 10x. Okay. I'm going to put $100 in at 10x leverage, long, buy up. That's a movement on $1,000 in Bitcoin. Okay, 10x. Okay. Now, 10:30 this morning. Okay, maybe by 2:30, Bitcoin's at 112,000. So it's up 1,000 points. Okay, $1,000. My trade could be up, 13%, 14%, 11%, whatever it is. Remember, you got to pay your fees, which are about 3%, depending on what exchange you're on. If you're leverage trading, you got to remember, you got to factor in those fees, the percentage of fees that are going to come out, and pick your target entry, your target exit. Okay. But say I exited at 112,000. Okay. That's going to come back into your exchange account. And then whatever that difference is between your 100, okay, and what you received, you can use that difference to buy Bitcoin long or any of the strategic 5 long. That's how you use your exchange wins to grow your long portfolio, okay, without tapping into any of their money. So I have people in the community that have set aside $5,000 for trading, okay, for leverage trading, and that's all they're going to put in leverage trading. And they keep using that $5,000 over and over and over again in different trades, and then taking their winnings, removing their winnings off the platform, and buying the strategic 5 long. That is how you will grow your portfolio, okay, without you having to use 401k money or your paycheck or whatever. Once you initially start and you set a plan and you use that, and that's what you're going to use, and that's what you're going to trade, and you're going to grow your trading account. But as you grow your trading account, when you recognize a flash crash, okay, or any kind of geopolitical event that crashes the market that doesn't have anything to do with crypto, it just simply has to do with a tweet, okay? That's when you want to be buying, okay? Because you've seen what's happened. Look, that was a flash crash, like quickly, and Bitcoin came back, right? Okay, even with all the negativity on Friday and Saturday, okay, institutions came in and bought, okay? So they shook everybody out. Okay. Why did they shake everybody out? Well, it was all over the news. 2.7% decline in the stock market on Friday. Who cares? I don't care. Okay. Because I'm in crypto, right? And so that's what I'm concentrating on. So again, that was a big deal. A 2.7% decline was a big deal. Can you imagine if they had experienced what we experienced in the crypto space? Okay. In the cryptoverse, when we get a 15%, 20%, 30% decline like we had when Bitcoin fell down to $70,000, remember, this isn't our first time at the rodeo. Bitcoin has done this continually. Those are the things that you want to look at in the macro. You don't need to look at all the fib and all this crap, okay, that people want about technical analysis that they brought in from the stock market, because you don't have any of those metrics influencing those technicals, okay? You don't have an earnings per share release. You don't have dividends. You don't have, products and services and all and buyouts, acquisition. You don't have all these things in crypto, okay? So crypto is driven more by hope, faith, emotion, right? It is more tied to what we've just seen with gold hitting an all-time high, right? So if you just look at the news coming up this week, okay, post-Spud, okay, what's the reality? The reality is we just had a Fed rate cut in September. The reality is we're going to have another rate cut in October. The reality is we're going to have another one in December. Remember, there's nothing going on in November, okay? So there's only FOMC only meets 8 times a year. We're going to get 2 more cuts. Probably won't get a cut in January. And remember, last year, or earlier this year in January, that began the no more cuts until September, right? And so we'll see what happens. But in the interim period now, what we're seeing is gold surges past $4,250. How long is that going to last? How long can gold, and a lot of people associate Bitcoin as another safe haven like gold, and in light of Fed cuts. Okay, why is the Fed cutting? The Fed clearly right now is not concerned with inflation. Okay, I've talked about this before. They're not concerned with inflation. Okay, they're more concerned with jobs and job growth, and that is why what's going to happen is because we are seeing the job market in the numbers, okay, show signs of weakness. Okay, now however many they want to report it. Okay, that's what's going on. Okay, and so Powell's not too concerned about the inflation number as he should, but he is now concerned with jobs. Remember, inflation is kind of on the way to 2%, which is good. Okay, what happens when the Fed? We're going to look out 2 months. Okay, what happens in this? If the Fed rate is cut twice by the end of the year, where's Bitcoin going to be? Okay, in my opinion, Bitcoin's going to be north of 130,000. There are people who think it's going to go to 150. I think it's going to be north of 125. It's definitely going to be back to its all-time high, in my opinion. Okay, this is just my opinion. Okay, not financial advice, obviously, for you. My opinion is I can see Bitcoin surpassing its all-time high before the end of the year. If we, in fact, get the cut on the 28th, 29th of October, and then again, we get another cut in December, and inflation is closer to that 2% number, this is the reality we're at. The tariff, what isn't reality, okay? It was a tweet, right? There was an overreaction to that tweet, okay? Because nothing else has changed, right? We woke up on Monday. The only thing that had changed was Bitcoin had crypto had a flash crash. And the market had a 2.7%, and I think they came back about 1.3 or 1.5 on Monday. So they basically brought half the losses back on Monday in terms of the stocks, right? In terms of the S&P. Call it the taco trade, okay? So what are we talking about? Why do we have all this FUD in crypto? Okay, it's all psychological, it's all mental, it's all emotion. Okay, worry, like they've been in all the media, your radio, everything's been flooding it up because of the 100% thing on China and all that. But realistically, where are we going to be at the end of the week? That 100% may not even happen, right? It may not even happen. And so the market's going to rebound very, very quickly. Both stock market, again, like I said before, it's a big tech market. None of that technology, the FOMO into technology over the last 2 years has been insane. The whole AI has been insane, okay, in terms of taking the market, like I said, to 40% of the entire S&P 500 valuation is in 7 stocks. And all 7 of those stocks are technology-based. That's where the growth in the economy, according to what the stock market is telling us, is coming from, okay? And so when you look at that stuff, when you factor in a lot of that, you've got to look at, okay, what are Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, in terms of current pressures. Like, what's the downside risk for Bitcoin? Well, people said it was going to be 89,000 on Friday. That Bitcoin was going to collapse to 89,000. Well, it didn't, okay? And so you got to look at what we just talked about a little bit when I mentioned 110,000. That is a support level, and then 108 is a critical support level. We have bounced. If you just look right here on the screen, you can see the wicks going down to 110,000, okay? 110,000, and then bouncing back up. That's telling you that level has a considerable amount of support, okay? So when that comes down, now you can argue how many times can we test that level? Well, that's the key thing, okay? How many times can you test that level before the institutions bail, okay? And they go ahead and take what they want to take off in terms of profits, because they've been buying up since $56,000. Okay, if you look at a lot of these institutions have been accumulating Bitcoin since $47,000 and $56,000, all the way up to 123, 24. Okay, selling and then coming back. All right, and so you want to look at that. Look how quickly it recovered, and then now we're falling back down. Okay, those are the moves where your leverage, your short-term leverage trades come in on 5-bit. That's where you can take $100 and put a 5x or a 10x trade in, because you're going to play that behavior. Okay? Most people didn't get an opportunity to get in at the flash crash. If you were on Binance, God bless you, but those folks got screwed. Okay? Because most US, obviously US, it's not indicative to US traders. But I do have people in the community that are from the UK, that are from Germany, that are from South Africa, that are from, other places, Australia. Well, they can have access. They get access to Binance KYC. They get access to that. And what happened with Binance was an absolute shit show. Okay, because their shorts, their limit orders, their limit sell orders, okay, I mean, they basically got squeezed. Okay, in a liquidation with their stop losses supposed to go through but didn't go through. And so they continue to lose value in their Bitcoin. Okay. And that can't happen. Okay. And thankfully, if you're in the US, you're not worrying about that with Binance. That's the only exchange I'm aware of that had short limits and limit orders just not, and stop losses just basically disappear, like they didn't exist when they did. That's a big problem. You got Ethereum, currently going in today, was still remained above its 100-day average. Let's take a look at Ethereum really quick. Ethereum right now is trading at just over $4,000. You got to remember it hit a low of 34, hit the 3,400 level during the flash crash. Okay, so it's already back $600. Okay, in 5 days. Now it reached a high of 4,200, the 4,200 range, but it didn't reach back to the level that it was before the flash crash, which was the 4,350 level. So that's the level I'm looking at now, wanting Ethereum to get back to that 4,350 level. And then I'm going to be all over it again. I'm still accumulating Ethereum long, because it's incredible valuation. I believe we're going to hit 7,000. We're going to hit 7,000 here, probably by Q1 of 2026. That's just, again, my opinion. It's not financial advice. That's what I'm looking at, just based on everything that's going on with Ethereum. See, Ethereum is one of those unique ones, and Solana, where you can actually see the activity, really what's the adoption? What's really the growth of the networks, right? Who's building on these things? I don't concern myself that much with Bitcoin in terms of that kind of philosophy. Even though I believe the market still moves with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is still the dominant crypto, obviously, and probably will be for a while. I look at Solana and Ethereum as being the two where there's the most promise and most activity, and most people being excited about. Okay. I consider Bitcoin, I know a lot of maxis are going to freaking get on me like they always do, but I consider Bitcoin to be the CD of crypto. Okay. It's the place where you're going to put money in. Okay. But, it's just like that CD at the bank, the old school way. Okay. And this is your exposure to crypto. A lot of people do that. I believe Ethereum and Solana and XRP, to a lesser extent Cardano, but there's a lot happening. Okay. Bitcoin is what it is. And so that's why I tell people to start with Bitcoin in terms of trading, in terms of learn to understand how Bitcoin works in the market, how it behaves when there's a geopolitical event, how it behaves when gold does what it does, how it behaves when the tech stocks rise or fall. And then you can then apply that to Ethereum, which I believe Ethereum is the crypto growth story. There are other cryptos that are going to go up and go down. 100x. There's going to be a project or some altcoin that's going to go 50x, 100x. There always is, but they don't last. That's a trade. And so if you got in, you got to also be real wary of the pump. I mean, the pump and dumps, you know what I'm saying? That's what happens. Ethereum, on the other hand, I believe, in XRP as well, coming in behind that, and Solana are growth stories in crypto in terms of where they're going to be 10 years from now. I think Bitcoin's going to be in the same place Bitcoin is today. I think it's going to be adopted by countries. It's going to be adopted as a standard digital currency. It's going to be used in the same manner that it is today. Ethereum, on the other hand, I believe is going to have a lot of other things going on. So in terms of growth, I've always said this. Ethereum has always delivered more bang for your buck in returns than Bitcoin does when you're trading. Okay? People look at the value, go, okay, Bitcoin's at $110,000, so it's worth more. Well, it's not worth more to me. Okay? Right? As a trader, it's not worth more to me. As an investor, it's worth more to me, right? Because the value is what it is. Okay? But if you're trading Ethereum, and Ethereum goes from 3,400 on Friday to 4,200 by Monday, Tuesday. Okay, what's that return versus what Bitcoin did? Right? You got to remember it's relative to what the underlying value is. So if Bitcoin goes from 100,000 to 110,000, okay, it's $10,000. Okay, what does Ethereum have to do? How much does Ethereum have to rise to reach that same level of return? That's what you got to do. And that's where you decide where you're going to put your money. Same with the XRP. XRP has been a phenomenal trading vehicle because of how quickly it recovers and how many people have faith in XRP, in the XRP army that trade XRP. Okay? So XRP fell below $2. We accumulated XRP in the portfolio at $2.03. Okay. Let me pull up XRP now. XRP is trading at $2.41 right now. Okay. So it got as low on Friday as $1.32. Okay. $1.32 in the flash crash. All right. We ended up getting it at 203. Okay. It's now at 240. So do that. That's a 37-cent increase in just 48 hours or so. Okay. Well, really 5 days. Sorry. But it got as high as $2.61. So we could have had a 58, 59-cent return in 5 days off of our investment. That investment, depending on how much capital you put into it, would have been more than if you had bought Bitcoin at the flash crash and held it for 5 days because of just the valuation of the currency being so much more expensive, right? So you put $1,000 into XRP, okay, right, versus putting $1,000 into $110,000 Bitcoin. What's your return going to be, right? That's what you want to think about, especially when you're in these leverage trades, okay? Because you put in a leverage trade at $2 at 10x, you put $1,000 in a leverage trade at 10x, okay? And that goes from $2 to $2.61 and you get out. That's one crazy trade, okay? Quick trade. Remember, on 5-bit, you've got 5 days. So we can hold these, we can get in and hold these trades for 5 days before they get liquidated, okay? Before we have to take action on them. If we don't take action on them, they're just going to expire. Okay, and you also can add to those trades. So you can buy those trades up or buy those trades down depending on what happens in the market. And that's why I recommend that people learn to become a short-termer. You're a short-term trader, long-term investor. Okay? And when you enter these things, is you're only leverage trading money that you're 100% willing to lose. Okay? Not your lunch money, not your tuition money, not your car payment, your house payment, your rent, your medical, none of that stuff, okay? It has to be grow it, small. That's what we do. That's what we do on Substack. That's what we do here is small traders, okay? How the working class family can get into crypto, okay? And get in there and understand how it works, risking very limited. Remember, on the 5-bit platform, you don't have to have one Bitcoin. You don't have to have one Ethereum. You don't have to have that, okay? You can start with like $100 or less, okay? I think it's 0.05. Like, you can start with what you need in terms of making your trade to start out, okay? And so your minimum is 5 USDT, okay? So 5 USDT to put on 5-bit to begin trading. So you could trade with that, okay? And learn. For the price of a cup of coffee, you can begin to trade, okay? And follow along with people, and just simply watch, simple trade, watch the RSI level, and enter a trade in every time you see Bitcoin, Ethereum, or if you prefer XRP or Solana, or Cardano, at that RSI level of 2025, and then watch. Okay? That's an oversold situation. Everything below that level, for me, it's 25. A lot of people use 30. I like 25. Anything below that level of 30, okay, is an oversold market. Everything above 70, okay, is going to be an overbought, which means when you look at this Bitcoin graph right here on the 4-hour on the screen, and at the bottom, you see the RSI, and you see that section of the beginning of October, we were an elevated RSI, okay, which should have signaled to people, institutions, or someone was going to take profits. And sure enough, we saw funds being removed from ETFs. There is your signal. That's when your radar goes off, okay? Because when it hits that level, like it did on October 4th, look right in the middle of this chart. On October 4th, you saw it kind of like, okay, it's now starting to fall below 80, okay? And then by the 5th or 6th, it hit 80 again, and it hasn't been up that level, and it has worked its way all the way down below 30, okay? And now it tried to work its way back up. It got to about 50, and then now it's falling down again, okay? And so that's what you really want to like, simple RSI trading method, okay? And using it longer term. Now, longer term is 5 days, okay, on the leverage trading 5-bit, all right? So when we say a longer term trade, that's what we mean, 5 days. We don't mean 2 months, 3 months. If you're doing that, that's hodling, okay? That's in your long account on Coinbase or wherever you want to store your crypto. But on 5-bit, you want to just put the amount of money on the exchange that you're willing to lose, okay? So you can put $100 on there and just trade up to 100, and then if you double your money, take the $100 out. Go out to dinner. Take the $100 out and, go out with your family. Go out with go buy yourself something, right? Like you made $100, but leave that $100 back in and keep trading again. You set your limits. You're in control. But you don't want to have, money sitting on any exchange that you're not trading. An exchange is not a safe place to hold and hodl your money, okay? You want to move your profits off the exchange into your wallet, whether it's Cold Wallet, whether it's Coinbase or wherever, okay? And then leave the amount of money that you're trading with, okay? Most people in the community are trading between $100 or less, or $100 to $2,500. And that's what they keep on the exchange at all times. And they wait for trading opportunities like we saw on Friday. And that's why so many people capitalized on this. Again, when everybody's screaming FUD, okay, that is the opportunity for a quick rebound. We've seen this play out over and over again, okay? Solana's trading at 193. Okay, Solana was kind of unique. It got as low as 169. Solana didn't really crash as much as Bitcoin and Ethereum did. So that tells you something about the people who are in Solana. They didn't get shaken out as much. So there's value in that. okay, in terms of buying sold, okay. And it did rebound quickly after the flash crash at 168. It got as high as 210. So, and I think on Sunday, it was about 183. So even 2 days after the flash crash, it went from 183 to 210. That's a great trade, okay, especially if you're on 5X or 10X leverage. Remember, the higher leverage that you're going, the shorter your liquidation period, okay, which means it's a tighter window. So if you're 100X, it's a very tight window. If your crypto falls below that number, right? 50X, it's about half, and then 25, and then 10 and 5, 15, or whatever leverage you want to set. You can even, I have an individual that in the community that does 1X trades all the time. It's a 1X trade. Okay. So it's basically just on the exchange within a 5-day period, trading 1X leverage. Okay. And so it's like, and he's very, very successful at it. Because 1X has the longest, like a 1X trade at 100,000 Bitcoin, the liquidation may be 72,000. So you would need a massive decline, a 25, 30% decline, okay, in Bitcoin. Doesn't happen every day to get liquidated, okay? But if you think that you're going to see a pop in Bitcoin or one of the strategic fives, right? You think like right now we're going to get a rebound, or Trump's going to take. What happens if Trump gets on and gets on Twitter or True Social and says he's doing away with the 100% rhetoric and China and him have a deal? Well, all these cryptos are going to go higher, guys, okay? Because that's what's moving the market now is tweets, okay, and posts. It's not reality. They're living in like this lot. Until that, there's no reality. It's all about, what if it becomes 100% tariff? Tariff hasn't been realized yet. And so that's where the market gets manipulated. And don't think for 1 second that the whales aren't in here buying, okay? Because there's a lot of big blocks buying Bitcoin and Ethereum that are not small investors, okay? The size of these blocks is pretty enormous, okay? When you have guys that made 60 million, 90 million on Friday during the flash crash, where do you think they're putting that money now? Okay? And so you got to think about that. In terms of that. Cardano. Where are you at, Cardano, today? 66.94, down 1.57%. Cardano fell on Friday to 29 cents. 29 cents. Okay. Cardano was one of the few cryptos that we did not add significant exposure to in the portfolio. Okay. Just because of all the crypto reserve, strategic reserve 5, to me, it's number 5. To me, I felt like what's happening with XRP, with the stable coins, and with banking, or stable coins with Ethereum, and with banking with XRP, that's the bigger growth story. Not to say that this Cardano is going to be fine. I just think we're going to see a lot more higher returns. But even that little trade, even after the initial flash crash, it got to 64 cents and it got to 72 cents. So it was a lot less trading potential compared to the others. And that's really the only reason for that. XRP still has bearish pressure, of course. Its next key level is $2.20, okay, for XRP. Remember, we're at 240 right now. So, everything resets, okay? And that's the thing. Bitcoin is still, all of them this week have been kind of like shaky, right? Because really just people don't know exactly what the truth is, right? And plus all the shakeout, and plus all that stuff on the news reporting of the manipulation and all that by institutions. It's been a drawdown. Okay, we're coming down from an all-time high. Okay, we've stopped the bleeding, of course, and now we're kind of in a consolidation pattern between 110 probably and 112 is where we're going to be. okay, in a continuation pattern. And you're seeing that with the wicks testing 110, and then your resistance levels are going to be at like, 112,000. And then breaking through that, we're going to see significant. If you're breaking at 112, you're going to 116. Okay. And you break that 116. Well, we're back up between the hours leading into the flash crash, which was 120 to 122. Okay. So you want to stagger your leverage trades. Okay. Each way up. It's how you should do it. You've got to understand the market is reset. Okay. In terms of crypto. And what do we mean by that? Well, $19 billion, even though we know it's not exactly 19 billion liquid in terms of cash, when $19 billion basically gets deleveraged out of the market, okay, like it's done in the last 5 days, the market resets. And every time the market resets, there's an opportunity, okay, because that money's gone now. So now the market's lower, the institutions. This is not 2017 anymore, okay? I say this all the time on Substack, okay? People need to stop thinking like it's 2015 and 2017. It is not. We've got so much institutional ownership in Bitcoin now and in crypto writ large that these are going to be the swings that are the norm. Because a lot of money is coming in and going out and coming back in, okay? And so you want to be that individual that understands, okay, I'm going to read Trump's, okay? I know how the market's going to react. Remember your trading behavior. There's no price. You're not trading price. You're trading behavior. It doesn't matter whether Bitcoin was 130, 110, 75, 92. It did not matter on Thursday night. Okay, going into Friday. Regardless of what the value was, the market was valuing Bitcoin on that day when that tweet came out or that post regarding 100% tariffs on top of the existing tariff on China, the market was going to crash. It did not matter what the valuations were of any of these crypto. So stop worrying about price, okay? Trade behavior, okay? So when you hear that or you start to hear, oh, wait, oh, so that 100% tariff's not going to happen. What do you think is going to happen in the market? Okay. Money's going to come back in because the fear just got addressed and flushed out. Okay. They shook us all out. Not us, but they shook everybody out. Why did they do that? Okay. Put a spotlight on that. The reason why they shake you out is supply. Bitcoin has a limited supply. Remember that. Don't ever lose sight of that. It's coming right down the pipe 5+ years from now. Okay? There is a limited supply. It's not printing money. This isn't a government that gets to just print money. Okay? Like our government has. To the tune of what? $37 trillion? Something like that? Whatever it is. Whatever the debt is. Okay? There's a limited supply of Bitcoin. Okay? The only way they can accumulate the amount of Bitcoin that they want to control this market is to shake you out and buy the Bitcoin that you sold. That's just the layman's reality. Sure, there's a lot of other technical stuff, a lot of other stuff that, you can, whatever, okay, economics that they can talk about, whatever. The reality of it is they're shaking you out so they then can accumulate the Bitcoin that you sold because Bitcoin has a limited supply, okay? That's just the reality, okay? And so when you see these moves, don't be a victim, okay? Don't be a victim. This is when you add to your portfolio long. And you don't have to buy one Bitcoin. You can put $25 into it on Coinbase, whatever it is. You can just say, I'm going to buy $25 of Bitcoin today because Bitcoin's down 10%. That's all you have to do. And if you'd have done that for the last 3 years, you wouldn't be worrying about Friday's flash crash at all. Like you'd just be like, okay, another opportunity, because all along the way, it is paid out for you by buying Bitcoin after every single FUD event. It is, as long as you stay long, okay, and you don't liquidate your portfolio, as long as you understand you're still adding, you've got a long-term kind of vision about your HODL account, you're not impacted by this, okay? Because you're not looking to take anything out, right? Because you've got a longer term vision, all right? But you've got to understand that right now, the appetite for accumulation is falling. That spells opportunity, okay? When everybody else in the market, okay, is screaming buy, you're usually at an RSI level of 70, okay? Because they are entering the market right before the headwind. They didn't enter the market when the RSI was at 20, when it got a tailwind to take it all the way to an RSI level of 80, right? They got in the market at 70. So they got in the market and they're FOMOing with everybody else. Oh my God, crypto was going through the blah, 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 blah. You can buy it online. You can do whatever. Everything's glorious, right? They're getting in right before the headwind. The headwind's at 80. And then when that headwind hits, Bitcoin takes a nosedive. Ethereum takes a nosedive, okay? And so if you are going to play that, take the profits, right? That's when you want to take profits. You don't want to be selling Bitcoin when it's at an RSI level of 30, okay? It's already oversold. You want to sell your Bitcoin. If you need to liquidate Bitcoin for whatever reason, you want to make sure that you pick a period in Bitcoin when Bitcoin is an elevated RSI level on the 4 hour, okay, of above 70, because you're going to be getting out at most likely what is a short-term top, okay, on a weekly basis, because you could see just by looking at that chart what happens when the RSI level gets to above 70. It stays there for a little bit and then ultimately falls down. And if you do that, a monthly chart, okay? Let me pull it up on mine. Let me change this real quick. So I changed to a daily, okay? We're just going to talk about Bitcoin. So the daily chart on Bitcoin, okay? Since July, we've only entered the on the daily now, not the 4 hour. On the daily, we've only entered the 30 range on the daily 4 times since July. So those are buying opportunities, okay? One of those was, of course, on October 10th, where it hit 39, okay? So on the daily, Bitcoin hit 39. But on the 4 hour, it dropped to 20, okay? So you got to remember that. So you can use the daily if you want for your long-term, like, but there's going to be less opportunities on the daily for you to put money into the Bitcoin market. That's why I use the 4 hour, because I think 4 hour is a lot. For me, you can use 6 hour too. There's just a lot more, tell you a little bit more of what's going on in the trading day, like during the day. Now remember, on October 5th, on the daily, Bitcoin was at 72 RSI, so overbought on the daily. So that should have told people, hey, things are getting a little bit overheated. And what was the price of Bitcoin? $125,000 when it reached its all-time high. That should have told people it wasn't going to 130 on that move, okay? Now, had it hit 125 on the daily and the daily RSI was like 55 or 60, it could have gone to 130, okay? But it wasn't ready to go. Those are the things we talk about. These are the things we teach. These are the things we educate people on, okay? You can simply use that one indicator to help you enter and exit markets. That's it. You don't need to learn all the fib. You don't need to learn all that stuff to be successful on this platform. You don't, okay? You really just need to figure out your own trading mindset, like risk, okay? This is 100% risk, all right? So you've got to figure out, okay, you want to limit the 100% of the risk, okay? How do you do that? It's like you don't go 50x right out the gate. You don't ever go 100x, okay? You literally are smart about your leverage. Start out with 5x or 10x, and you'll see, oh well, I've got a lot of leeway before it would liquidate. Exactly. So you give yourself a little bit more of a gap in your liquidation. Remember, the higher leverage you go, the shorter your liquidation level is, okay? And the risk of, in a swing, it gets liquidated, okay? And you want to avoid that. But how you can learn is to go shorter leverage, which gives you a longer liquidation level below, should it go above or below, whether you're long or you're short. So if you're buying a sell down and Bitcoin goes up, okay, you're going to be out of the money. All right. And the same is true the other way. If you're buying it to go long and it goes down, you're going to be out of the money. And you can see how far you're out of the money, on a percentage basis, okay, as you approach that liquidation level. And then when you get close to that liquidation level, you got to make a call. You can buy it up, okay, and to avoid liquidation, which will lower, by adding more money into the trade, you're going to lower that strike price, what we call in options trading in Forex and futures is a strike price. You're going to lower it, okay? But it keeps your trade alive and extends your trade for another 5 days, okay? This is how you can do it, all right? And so that's how you want to play those situations of what's going on. On Tuesday, BTC ETFs recorded net inflow of $103 million. Where's that money going? Okay. Bitcoin, right? It's a Bitcoin ETF. So they've now got to look to where to accumulate Bitcoin. Where are they going to accumulate Bitcoin and at what price? They now have $103 million of net inflows coming in to that ETF. They've got to deploy it. Depending on what their structure is, how long before they deploy it? How long are they willing to sit on the sidelines and wait before they deploy that, right? And so you want to look at that total Bitcoin spot ETF net inflow, okay? I post these on Substack, okay? I will post the Substack in the description, okay, of these videos coming up. We're gonna break down 5bit, the new platform, the new things that you can do, basically how the platform works. We'll break that down in the next video. This was just a graph on 5bit for the 4-hour chart, but we'll break down the actual new platform for trading leverage. I'll put a link down. You can check it out. I'll put a link down to where you can go into it as well and set your account up if you want to set your account up. Or if you just want to check out 5bit, like just see what's that all about? What's this guy talking about? For years we used Bit7 and love that platform. These platforms are very, very unique in the fact that there's not a lot of noise going on. A lot of those other platforms for crypto just have too much noise, bells, whistles, things moving around. These platforms, like Bit7 now, or 5bit now, following on the development of Bit7, are just very easy to use. The interface is easy, the account, the trading, your positions, it's very easy to see, very easy to understand. And that's why I love it. I love it compared to any of the other ones. And the fees are lower, compared to a lot of the other ones. You don't have to deal with a lot of shenanigans that can happen on some of the other exchanges. So we're going to pay attention to yesterday. So you've got outflows and inflows. You constantly always want to take a look at those, okay? And because that's going to tell you the market behavior and the market sentiment. Right now, you've got a battle happening, not on price. The real battle has nothing to do with. It doesn't matter what Bitcoin is valued at today, okay? The real battle happening right now is a sentiment battle, okay? And so who's going to win that out, okay? In terms of directional trading. Are the bulls going to take the market higher, or is the FUD and the bears going to take the market lower? That's what the reality of this week is. Because you've got one day where you've got $100 million of inflows, and the next day you've got $100 million of outflows. There's just this, okay, the dichotomy working here where it's going to be really, really harder to gauge. So on October 10th, trying to look at total net 62 billion inflows. Wow. So since October 10th, we've had 3. Obviously, you don't have any of that for the weekend data. So Friday, we were negative. Monday, we were negative. Tuesday, we were positive. Wednesday, we were negative. Okay. We'll see what's going to happen today on Thursday. Okay. My gut tells me we're probably going to be positive, but not a lot, just based on what we're seeing with Bitcoin's trading right now. We'll see if we got any other news coming up. Yeah, Solana definitely. Take a look. Any trader should take a look at Solana. I'm gonna take a look at Solana tomorrow, and I'll get back on here tonight, and I'll get back up here tomorrow and talk about some trading scenarios, because it did not, like, that surprised me that it did not go down further than what the other cryptos did. You've also got Bitcoin Cash. Obviously, that's not a strategic buy, but it's one of my favorites because it's basically like trading Bitcoin, but cheaper. You're looking at you can trade Bitcoin over 100,000, or you can trade Bitcoin Cash between $400 and $500, right? Like, but if you look at the price correlation, the correlation is like 93%. Like it's like, so you can do that. And plus, if you got $100 and you're putting $100 into Bitcoin Cash, that's going to return you a little bit better than if you put $100 into Bitcoin, right? In terms of your trade. Remember that. Okay. You always want to find those kind of correlated assets. What's correlated to Ethereum, right? Ethereum Classic, things like that. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of the other forks that we call them. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in Substack as we go forward. But I'm trying to find Solana price forecast, crypto trade, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, downside risks. Bitcoin price forecast, Bitcoin could retest 100,000 before resuming its upward trend. Okay. So be aware of that, because it obviously now it's at one. What are we trading at right now? We fell back. Now we're falling back down. We're back down to 110. Okay. So we're falling back down to that lower 110 level. All right. So that's a support level. So we're on the support level right now. Okay. So you make the determination right now. Look, man, I'm not feeling it, man. I'm feeling like, okay, this thing's going to go to 108. This thing's going to go to 100,000. This thing's going to go south before it goes north. So that's when you want to enter your sell down trade. Okay. Not financial advice. Okay. Just for educational purposes, but that's where you want to look at. So that's what I'm looking at right now. And we're looking at an RSI now of 38. So we are still low. We're very low we're still low on that 4-hour RSI, but the market sentiment, we've been testing 111,000 now for 5 4-hour sticks, and we can't get past it. So, there's 2 ways you can plan out that trade. Is you can wait and see if Bitcoin gets back to 111,000 and then place a sell down order. Okay. Because, right, you don't have confidence it's going to be able to break that resistance level because we don't have the net inflows. Okay. They're down yesterday, down this morning. So there may not be a lot of new money coming into the market to push it above 111,000. So you could use that like you could have done for the last 16 hours, is basically traded at the 111,000 sell down level 4 times, 4 4-hour sticks, and you would have been profitable. You would have been in the money. So right now we're at 110. 110.68 and dropping. Okay, so the riskier play is to do that sell down at 110 because that is a support level. Okay, so you're watching that 110 level right now. It's falling. Okay, and if it breaks that 110 level and holds, there's a good opportunity we're going to see 108,000, and that would be a 2,000 in the money trade. Okay, if you got in at 110. So we're going to watch this fight at 110. There's going to be a fight going on right now at 110,000. See what happens. Yep. Fighting it out. They're fighting it out right now. Volume is ticking up at 110,000. So you've got people defending that 110,000 level because it's a critical support level. You can see it right here on the graph. Okay, right there. Okay, because if you go back to September 23rd on this graph, okay, you can see the battle that took place at that level before back in September. Okay, and we're right back on that. Forget about the flash crash. That's an aberration. It's an anomaly. We're right back on that 110 level. Okay, and so it breaks that 110 level. All right, I'm going to enter in right now. I'm going to enter a trade in right now at 110, limit $110,000, sell down 10x. All right, 10x leverage. All right. And so we'll watch that trade. I could watch that trade now because we've broken that 110,000 support level. Now it could just as easily come back, and that's when you can balance it out. Now the beauty of this is on 5-bit, I can then, if somehow this trade comes back against me, right? Okay, it falls below 110,000 and maybe it goes to 109,700. Okay, and then it all of a sudden comes back to 10,000. And starts to move above 10,000, I can enter a second buy up trade. So I can have two companion trades, a buy down at 110 and a buy up at 110, okay, to protect both those trades. Now, what happens in that scenario is if that 110 buy up goes to 111,000, I can take I could sell that trade and then buy up my buy down trade, okay? So it's no longer 10,000 sell down. It's now 10,400 sell down. Okay. And so if that 111 level resistance holds, it's going to fall back down to 110 again. And I can exit that trade. So I've been out of both trades, both profitable. Okay. Simple technique. All right. All right. 109,820. So we're almost $200 in the money in that trade at 10x. Okay. And remember, when you're looking at that at the bottom of the screen, we're going to do some trades here coming up this week on the platform. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see how that percentage works in terms of, okay, I'm going to pay a 3.5% fee, okay, for this trade. So I want to make sure that you always want to make sure your gains are at least twice what your fees are. So if you see a 6.5 or 7%, you can get out. I know people that immediately just do that. They get out twice their fees. So if their fees are different for each of the cryptos. So, but if your fee is 3.5%, they get out at 7. Okay, they don't. As soon as it gets to 7, they get out. There are other people who, let it run. They can let it run to 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. All of a sudden, the market is freaking FOMOing. They just let it run. Okay, we had people on Friday and Saturday that had trades at 38%, 42%, 51%. Okay, right? Because they were sell down. All right, and the market kept going down and down and down. Okay, so it's you determine your comfort level of terms of exiting a trade. Okay, every bit as much. And so a lot of times you want to set that up before you get into a trade. It's okay, like we just talked about. 110, 111. 110 is support. 111 is resistance. I'm going to watch it. Okay, I'm going to watch and see what happens. They're going to be fighting this out at 110, okay, for a while. Okay, this is a critical support level. If she breaks 110 and she stays below 110 for a 1 hour candlestick, or 1 hour stick, okay, it's going to fall to 108. All right, that's just what it is, because the buyers will have been exhausted, okay, to keep it at 110. Okay, they're propping it up. All right, and so you could see her come back, okay, to 110 again, and that fight can resume, and then it falls back down to 109. Okay, somewhere in the, and then it comes back. That's where the fight's going to be. But you got a trade in there, because right now the sentiment is telling us that the market wants to take her lower. Okay, and sometimes it takes a little bit for the market to catch up to what the sentiment is, or what news is going to drop here afternoon today. Okay, because right now there's not an overwhelming amount of buyers in Bitcoin right now, and my guess would be Ethereum is going to be the exact same way. 3,962. Okay. Still red on the 4 hour. We've been as high as 4,000. Now we're at 39.58. So Ethereum is dropping right along with Bitcoin right now. The next support level is right. We're right on the support level right now on the 4 hour for Ethereum. So if Ethereum falls below 3,900, there's a good chance she's going to fall to 3,800. And that's a $100 move, okay, which for Ethereum is a significant move. $100 move for Bitcoin is not, okay, because Bitcoin's up at $110,000. Okay, so remember those equivalencies, okay? It's still a big move for Ethereum, though, a $100 move, all right? And if that happens today, that's going to be, a sign. It's going to tell us what's going to happen this evening in the overseas markets, okay? Its current RSI level on the 4 hour is 42, so it's kind of right in the middle, okay? So it's kind of neutral. 40 to 50 to me is neutral, okay, in terms of your RSI level. I usually do not enter trades between 40 and 55. I just don't. It's neutral. Could go either way. But if it's below 30, I'm going to do a buy up. If it's over 70, I'm going to do a sell down, okay? That's just me. It's not financial advice. It's just for educational purposes, okay? But that's really how it is, all right? So that's where we are today in the markets. Quick update. Everything's testing its 3-month support. Of course it is. See if there's any more news coming out right now on the street. Let's look at news. And I'll post a bunch of charts and post everything up on Substack. I'll put that link, like I said, in the description of this video. Substack's free. You can come in there. You can kind of learn some juice. Gold smashes through 42.50 as trade war fears. We talked about that. USD, CAD steadies amid U.S. trade tensions. Markets await BOC governor's speech. USD edges lower, gold rally extends. Fed's mirroring. Fed officials must treat all government policies equally, not only highlighting tariffs. Yeah, so here it comes. Right? I think we're setting up for a rate cut in October, and that's going to be the trade. So we're going to focus on the next 2 weeks, okay, going into that October 28th FOMC, okay? Because this is where we've been successful with these FOMC meetings, trading the hype, okay? Trading the rumors and then selling the news, okay? So watch crypto go higher, okay, in anticipation of a rate cut, okay? If that rate cut doesn't happen, crypto market is going to tank, okay? Because the equity market is going to tank. And that's what you've got to look at, okay? All right. So trade right now is at 109,246, down from that entry at 110,000 right here on the screen. Okay, so that's an $800 profit in that trade. We are in the money with the fees, paid. Okay, so we could easily exit that trade. I'm not gonna, but you could easily have exited that trade. Exit that trade with a minus fees, a 6% return, 6.5% return. Okay, bank's not gonna pay you 6.5%. Could have just done 6.5% right there. It's continuing to fall. Now it is 11%. Okay, so minus 3.5%. Yeah, so now you're at 8%. Okay, so 8% return in less than 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, not going to get that at your bank. All right, so that's how you do it, guys. That's just simple. We did it. We talked about it right here. 110. We went down. We tested 109. I think the lowest level it got was 109,239. Okay, and so again, watch that. If you watch this video, check and see what happened the rest of the day. Okay. You'll know whether or not I freaking exited that trade or not, because if it gets down towards 108,000, you can bet that I did. Okay. Again, not financial advice, just for educational purposes, but that's how you want to do it. 109. Now we're hitting 109,000. Okay. We're going to break 109,000. We're going to enter in 108,000 right now. See that red bar right there on your screen? That's your 4-hour candle, and it's falling. Okay. So we're at 109,000 right now. All right, so we're $1,000 in the money, okay, in this trade, all right, in less than 10 minutes, okay? And she's going to continue probably to fall below 109,000 because the buyers probably are not going to come back in until 108, okay? Significant buyers. So we could see a little bit of activity here at 109. Also pay particular attention to what's happening down here at the RSI. You just saw it drop, okay? Significantly. All right. So now it is at 34 and it was at 41. That's what did it. Here we go. We're falling right now, guys. We are at 14%. 14% in the trade, 14%. And that's minus fees, okay? Minus our fees for the Bitcoin trade. All right. 108,888. Watch on your screen that red bar, your furthest one on the right, that 4-hour bar is continuing to fall. And as that bar continues to fall now below 110,000, you are making positive returns on your leverage trade at 10x. Okay? We called it at 110,000. Oh, we got some volume coming in a market at 108,800 level. We just got 2 big blocks coming in here. We're going to see what happens. But that's it, guys. It's very, you want to watch that. You want to find your resistance levels, support levels, and that's what you do. And you don't need a Bitcoin. You don't need $100,000 to do these trades, guys. Okay? 5 USDT. Okay? There's teenagers trading crypto. Okay? Every single day doing this. All right? That's how like once you get your head around the simplicity of it, understanding, accepting that it is risky, the teenagers are just great at it because they're like video junkies. They're like, it's like doing a video screen to them. Trading crypto is like playing a video game. They just got a head for it, and we're looking at this right now. We're at 108,855. Let's switch over really quickly to Ethereum because let's see what the Ethereum is still doing. Okay, Ethereum is at 3,900. So it's roughly still where it was. It's about $15 lower. But that's going to be the trade now for Ethereum. It's going to be 39. It's going to be about 39.20. So if we fall below, we hit 39.20 on Ethereum on the downside, she's likely going to fall to $3,800. Okay? So just remember that. You see that candlestick is still dropping with Bitcoin right there on the screen. Okay? That's a live feed right there. RSI has dropped from 50 to 42 in this 4-hour stick. We're at 39.41, like I said. I'm going to enter in mine at 39.20, 10x. right? 39.20. 39.20 buy down. Didn't hit it. We're at 39.25. So we got some volume coming in right here on Ethereum, right on that level I talked about. Okay. And she's going back up to 39.30. So we're still wait. We're still going to hold, because if she breaks that 39.20, now you also, if you believe it's going to bounce off of this support level, you can also do a 39.20 buy up. Okay. But the sentiment in the market today is more negative than positive, and the trend is saying that it's going to be a down day. Okay, that's at least in the last 4 hours. If you look across the board, okay. So we didn't get in that trade at 39.20. We're back up to 39.35. Okay, so we're going to keep an eye on that with Ethereum. Bitcoin obviously is continuing to do what it's going to do, which is 109. It's back up to 109. So it's back up to 109,000. And of course, the trade has come back down to about 9%. So we got as high as 14.5%. And now we've fallen back to 9%. But the trade is still open. So you could have gotten out at any point past that 7%. Because remember, fees times 2. Okay. So always remember, you're going to have to pay those fees regardless. Okay. So you could have gotten out at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or 14%. Okay. I didn't do that. Stayed open because I really think we're going to see some action here coming up in the next 2 hours. That's going to test 108,000 for Bitcoin today. That is where my head is at, just based on the sentiment and just based on the flows of what we're seeing in the market. And we're seeing Bitcoin struggle to crack that 111,000 level repeatedly. If you're looking at your EMA, your 7-day, it's at 110, 758, so we're below that. If you're looking at your 10-day, it's at 111, 109, we're above that. I'm sorry, below that. EMA 21, 112. See what we're talking about here? This is why that 111,000 is critical. That 10-day exponential moving average is right at 111, 100, okay? And that's why Bitcoin has had a harder time breaking that level. Okay. Because of that's a resistance level. All right. And so we want what we want to have happen. I don't know why she didn't come in. There we go. Sorry, guys. This chart's reloading. All right. We're back into 108,000. We're at 108,900. So we're starting to go back down again. RSI is still at 34. I'm sorry, 34, right at 34. Okay. So we're looking at right now, this trade, there's nothing underneath her right now. Okay. And what I mean by that is look at this dark space on your screen below that red candle. Okay. There's no support down there. Okay. Going back to the 1st of October, there's no support. So if the buyers don't come in, this can get ugly quick, okay, in the next 24 hours for Bitcoin. And I'm going to keep the trade open, okay, because there is no support level. You see that anomaly that's on your screen with that long wick is from Friday, doesn't count, okay? You got to go all the way back to early September, okay, for any kind of support, all right? And so she could free fall here, all right, to 108. And if she breaks 108, she could very well get to 100,000, all right? And so this is how you're going to play it. And if Bitcoin starts to fall, if you see it's Thursday, 11:45, if you see Bitcoin fall below 108,000, look at the other strategic 5. Look at Ethereum, look at Solana, look at Cardano, and look at XRP. And see what's going to happen to them. We're at 108.8. Let's check out XRP right now. Okay. She should be falling. And yes, she is. She's off 3%, $2.36. Okay. So she's already fallen 3%. All right. And Bitcoin continues to fall. She's now at 108,700. All right. And that's really all I got for you guys. Okay. A little update there on still have $135,000 price target for Bitcoin by the end of the year. I believe we're going to have 2 Fed rate cuts. Okay. Stop worrying about inflation. It's roughly around 2%. Worry about the job numbers. Okay. But the problem is they're really not going to get the job numbers. They're really not going to get the accurate, really like predictive job numbers because everybody's at home like me. Okay. Nobody's at freaking work. Everybody's furloughed. This is day 15. Okay. Still want to look at inflows and outflows. Okay. It's really what you want to do. Just pay particular attention to those things. Bitcoin's now at 108,600. Remember this trade. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll see how this trade did. We'll continue to see if it holds at 108,000 or falls to 100,000. If it falls to 100,000, this trade is going to be a 40, 50, 60% trade. Okay. And inevitably it will be that way because we will add more money into it and we will raise the leverage. I'll show you all about that, talk a little about that in the Substack. Glad to be back. Glad you could be with us as we get back to doing it a little bit more. Just join us on Substack. Okay. I'll put the link in the description. We're at 108,658. We are over 15%. Oh, 108.5. We're dropping. Okay. We're dropping now. 108.578. Okay. 16%. All right. So, and we'll get more into it coming days. I'll do another update tomorrow in case if anything happens here. So come and check it out. I'm going to try and flip over from the live stream to a different platform so we can do a little bit more trading in the, trading here on YouTube with you guys like we normally do in the via Zoom and with the community and stuff. But yeah, 108,500, we're falling, guys. Okay. So that 110, we covered it here. 110,000, sell down, 10x. Okay. 110,000, 10x. All right. And you see the call. We read it right here on the screen together. We saw that resistance level fail and the support level fail. And now we've got nothing but free fall air below 108,000 right now. So if 108,000 does not rally and she falls into that 107,000 zone, she is going to fall. Okay. And this trade is going to remain open. We can keep this trade open for 4 more days, really 5 days because we just entered it, but we could keep this trade open till Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Next Tuesday, this trade can stay open, okay? You get 5 days on the 5-bit exchange to keep your trade live, all right? So remember, when we come back tomorrow, we come back on Friday, we talk about this, 110. Now, we may have liquidated it out. We may have cashed it out, okay? If we get a whip back, okay? At some point, we may say, hey, that return is good enough. 15% is good enough. I'm going to take it. Okay. And then but remember, guys, when you're trading, for the very reason why you're going to exit a trade should be the very reason why you enter another one. Okay. So if I exit out of here at 108,000, okay, take my profits. I should buy up at 108 because if I didn't think Bitcoin was going to go down further, I certainly must believe that Bitcoin's going to go up. So again, just reverse it. Sell out at 108,000 and then buy up. And if it rallies back to 109 or 110, you're capturing it both ways. And that's how you want to do it. Okay. You're doing it with low leverage and you're doing it with low. Remember, you can do it with 5 USDT. Okay. In a single trade. So just keep aware of that. We're at 108,450. Okay. 450. All right. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. And we'll see you next time. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, we're going to do a whole wealth of